Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you very much for joining us. You're with International Housewares Association and a few of our member companies here today, joining us on May 1st for the IBC and IBC Global Forum webinar. Thank you so much, and we're going to introduce the participants on this webinar now.
Hi, I'm Perry Reynolds with IHA.
I'm Szudarek with IHA.
I'm Mark Adkison, the President of the IBC Board of Directors and VP of Global Sales for Smith's Consumer Products.
And I'm Sean Daly, Vice President of International at InterDesign, and I'm a past board member of the IBC.
We'd like to share with you before we get started that we will accept and look forward to your questions at any time. You can send them to us through the chat area, the chat box on your screen there. Also remind you that this webinar is being recorded, so if any of your peers need to listen to it, we'll send you the link to it after the webinar.
We will discuss now the International Business Council, which was formerly called the Housewares Export Council, or HECNA. Companies that are eligible to join International Business Council are all of our regular IHA member companies. The cost to join, as you can see on our PowerPoint, is complimentary for all of these IHA regular member companies upon completion of an online IBC membership survey that gathers some details about what you do with your company in terms of exporting and what services you're looking for the IBC to provide for you. Our IHA Board of Directors saw this as a valuable resource for many of our companies to take advantage of, and they've recently approved a complimentary system of membership so that membership wasn't a barrier to anyone because of price. So this is newly a resource that is complimentary to all of our IHA members. The benefits of the International Business Council are educational and networking benefits and events and services aimed at helping companies increase their global sales, their exports of housewares products. We're going to go through some of the IBC key member benefits, and as we do so, we will be having Mark Atkinson and Sean Daly make some comments as they've been users of these benefits and how these items have impacted their business and what they've derived out of these benefits. I'll first start by discussing our newsletter, which is the Export Explorer blog. It is filled with relevant news that is pertinent to exporting, regulatory things that go on within exporting, and serves as a tool for our members to learn more about some of the elements going on that might impact their export business. Included often within that Export Explorer blog newsletter are key retailer and distributor reports, which give introductions and contact details to the buyers at key retailers and key distributors worldwide. And with those key benefits that I've just discussed, the Export Explorer and the key retailer and distributor reports, I'd like to ask Mark Atkinson how he's benefited from using those resources of IBC.
We use both the key retailer and the distributor reports for whether we're looking at a new market or it's a market where we currently have business. It's important because a lot of information is provided, like Lori mentioned, like specific buyer names for the categories, their specific contact information, the store type and the retailer reports, and how they position themselves in the market. And that's things that usually you can't get without. I mean, you can research it, but I think this gives it all in one particular place. The distributor reports are nice because they kind of give the size of the distributor, the typical brands that that distributor carries, so you can look for whether there's conflicts that already exist within that distributor that you don't want to participate with them in business, or again, kind of showing where they fall within the market as far as what types of brands they carry. So I think both of those are really important in us using to try to go into a market or change or expand our business in a particular market.
Thank you, Mark. Sean Daly, do you have any comments on how the Export Explorer blog and or the key retailer and distributor reports have been useful to you.
Sure. I use the key retailer reports for prospecting, and a lot of the information that's provided in there, as Mark said, will help you get a direct line to a buyer, whether it's email or telephone. And then there's also information about brands that they carry, and I think that that's a useful tool on the key retailer report so that you can look at your peers in the U.S. or Europe and determine, that can kind of give you a determinant of whether your product fits within that retailer. And it also gives you store count, which is always an important factor when you're trying to report back to your U.S. counterpart and budgeting to try to get into these guys to say, hey, there's a store count. You can build a financial plan about it based on some of the numbers that you see. And as far as the Export Explorer, I use that there's a lot of good news that comes through on that blog. There's usually an update on retailers, which I find useful, that talks about store expansions and new formats that a store may have, and that's good information to have when you're putting together your plan. So those are some of the ways that I use the Explorer and the key retailer reports.
Thank you both. I'm now going to move on to discuss some of the IBC key member benefits that are useful for preparation and during the International Home and Housewares Show. As you see on our PowerPoint, IBC members have the availability to receive the pre-show non-U.S. registration list. So updated weekly pre-show, IBC members are able to log into a members-only section to see who from what countries have registered, what kind of a buyer that is, and to do a little research on who those retailers or distributors or even reps are coming to the show from outside the U.S., and that's a very useful tool. The IBC members are also the hosts at the Monday night reception, which is a reception marketed to non-U.S. attendees to the shows. So it's a very informal but fun networking event that the primary members there are the IBC members. So it's a very nice networking tool at the show. In addition, all of the IBC members are featured on our Housewares Connect 365 tool, which is a resource that a lot of the buyers use pre-show for their planning, during the show for their planning, and post-show to follow up with leads. So IBC members are highlighted as exporters and ready to do business outside of their markets, whether that's the U.S. or another global market. And then post-show, IBC members receive the non-U.S. registration list of everyone who registered for and attended the show. Those are some great benefits to IBC for preparatory methods of getting ready for the show and then following up after the show. Sean, can I ask you to comment on how you use some of those show-related tools?
Sure. The pre-show U.S. non-U.S. registration list is something that I began looking at in January to see who's signed up, who's coming, specifically for the markets that I'm targeting, and also the retailers that I know as a checklist, so that I can reach out to them and try to establish appointments during the show time. And then post-show, I use it as a follow-up. If I haven't seen the people and I know that they actually attended, then I can follow up with them. And then during the year, I think it's a great prospecting list as I check off and start to look at developing a new market. I can go to that and look at who are the retailers that came and visited and who are the distributors, and then I can attack them based on the information that I have there.
Thank you, John. Mark, do you have any comments on why those show resources are useful for your business?
No, I think Sean pretty well covered. We use them for the same aspects, but especially more of looking into new markets where we don't have as much knowledge about the retailers that are present. I think that's something we reuse this all year long also.
I'd like to add one thing to that, and that is that the pre-show lists are only available, the only place that pre-show lists are available are the IBC members in any way. So it is a tremendous head start to getting yourself ready for the show that perhaps non-IBC members don't have that advantage. So if you're not a member, that all by itself is an excellent reason to become a member.
Great. I'd like to move on to one of the other benefits of IBC, our trade missions. We take a number of companies outside the U.S. to learn about a market and to get one-on-one experience with some of the buyers within those markets. We do this by doing retail tours, visits to some of the key retail stores within those markets that are pertinent to home and housewares industry, and we do one-on-one buyer meetings with distributors and retailers during those trade missions. And it's been a wonderful way to introduce a lot of our members to markets they're aiming to prospect or markets they're in and they haven't established the business that they hope to establish within those markets. And we have this year coming up 2 trade missions as listed on our PowerPoint, a trade mission in the end of September, beginning of October in South Africa, and a November trade mission to the UK. And we've done numerous trade missions. This is probably our 8th year of trade missions, and we've had highlights of success, not only for the attendees, but it's also served as a method of getting buyers back to our show to re-meet those suppliers that they've met on some of those trade missions. So it's been an excellent tool for IBC members. Either Mark or Sean, would you like to comment on participation within these trade missions? Mark, would you like to mention anything?
Sure, I'll jump in here.
Thank you.
We have attended, we personally have attended missions in Colombia, Australia. I believe our company is going to be attending the South Africa mission coming up soon. As Lori mentioned, I think it's great in new markets or markets where you already have distribution. I think the mission format provides really good leverage to access to buyers. Sometimes distributors have trouble getting into certain buyers. I think just the approach that IHA takes in these missions results in really a better reception from the buyer when compared to a cold call or someone calling them just wanting to come in and see them when you're traveling a market. I think a second important benefit really is the ease of planning for the meetings in the market, that really you leave everything as far as the organization and the planning for the meetings to the team at IBC. And then when you go in, everything is organized in a way, whether it's transportation, meeting scheduling, meals, hotels. They really help coordinate all of that for you and makes it extremely easy going into these markets, but extremely beneficial for us as a member to IBC.
Great, thank you. Sean, is there anything you'd like to add from your company's participation in trade missions?
No, I'd just like to summarize what Mark said, is that you're leveraging your time because IHA sets up all the details, and you're also leveraging multiple suppliers going into a buyer so that that meeting is very important to them, which makes they'll definitely be present. So it's just, that's a great resource and allows you to carry on developing other areas and concentrating your time because the IBC's putting together all the details.
Thank you. I'll now move on to our non-U.S. pavilions. IHA and IBC have sponsored pavilions at several non-U.S. housewares trade fairs. We do all of the logistical work, working with the management of the fair, allowing our members to come in, exhibit in a market where they may not be ready to take on a huge booth and the expense of doing all of the work themselves. And it allows them sort of an incubator concept of testing a fair without having to commit a lot of time and energy and resources to, and allows you the comfort of being with other IBC members. This year we have a pavilion scheduled for the Interior Lifestyle China Fair in Shanghai mid-September, and both InterDesign, Sean Daly's company, and Smith Consumer Products, Mark Atkinson's company, have participated in this. And Sean, would you like to comment on what this has given your company?
Absolutely. That was a very beneficial trade show for us. In terms of ease of use, which Mark mentioned with the trade missions, you get the same thing here as IBC does all the research and sets up gets the space and takes care of a lot of the details. So what we can concentrate on is making sure the booth looks correct and preparing materials to come in. And with this particular trade show, a lot of what we went for was to gather intelligence to see what other suppliers were participating in the show, what kind of retailers came to the show, what distributors were there, and we were able to really hit all three. We got a good feeling for what other suppliers were present, and we had some meetings with distributors, and we actually had retailers that came to us, and the end result is we established two business relationships from that show in September that came to fruition before the end of the year. So I think that's a good reason and a good selling point to participate.
Thank you. Mark, do you have anything to add to that?
No, but I think you mentioned about the one thing to add was the really the networking aspect. I think being out there with all of the other member companies, what I found was I found all of us talking about the challenges of a market or how people are doing certain things. If you're attending a show and you're on your own, you're almost out on that island to where you don't have that benefit there. And I think it was extremely important in this format to gain that information.
Great.
Lori, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, please, Debbie.
Are there any trade missions scheduled for 2015?
We will have a lineup of trade missions scheduled for 2015. Probably they will be announced around November, and registration will start then. We're looking at certain markets, and we're using some of the data that is being compiled from the IBC member survey to understand where our members are looking to get in for trade missions, what markets seem to be important. But absolutely, yes, we will have missions in 2015 that will follow the format that our already established trade missions have followed. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is, do the mission trips primarily focus on kitchen-type products, or are there other categories?
No, certainly we've had home organization products. We've had cook and bake companies. We have had, there's a member company within our association that does chemical coatings. They've attended one of our missions. So the breadth of all of our show categories are welcome on the trade missions. And a lot of the retailers, you'll go into a market and you'll realize that not all the retailers are for you, but you'll also go into that market and you'll realize which ones would be a good match. So when you do attend a mission, it's a wonderful way to focus on which are the appropriate retailers and which retailers have nothing to do with your product line. But seeing all of the retails gives you an understanding of the entire market. So that's been a very big highlight for most of our members that have attended.
Have it this time.
I'd like to continue discussing some of the member benefits of IBC. Within the IBC member benefits members only section on our website, we have special reports. Some of them are country reports, some of them are market research reports that discuss regulatory matters that would impact your non-U.S. or non-global export sales. And that has been a highlight. We have a lot of contributors to that. We also, and so some of those reports are specific to exporting. Some of them are specific to research that's been done on a global level about export sales or specific categories of sales. Have those reports been useful in your business, Mark?
Yeah, I think most of what we use those for is just to keep at least abreast of some common changes that are out there among our industry, but I think also really to highlight areas where we may need to do a deeper dive, especially in the regulatory side. When they highlight changes, it may make a call to us that we need to go into it and research a little bit deeper than what's presented in the reports, but at least it brings it to the forefront for our group.
Thank you. Sean, do you have anything further on some of the special reports?
We use the same as Mark's saying about the regulatory reports, and on the country reports, we'll use that as a litmus test to see, you know, are we doing the right, hitting the right markets? Are we seeing the kind of results that are being reported? So yeah, we look at both of those.
Great, thank you. I will now discuss two benefits of IBC that are specific to networking. One is an IBC mentor, which is where we pair up one-on-one suppliers, a new supplier to export or a supplier that seems like they're looking to get a little bit more information on exporting but don't necessarily know where to start. We'll often pair them with a seasoned exporter that's a non-competing supplier so that they can do some work together to get the less experienced supplier up to speed on where he needs to be for exporting. And further, another networking benefit is our LinkedIn group, and the IBC LinkedIn group allows members to access each other for networking in a time period where they're not at the show, where they're not at a trade mission or a pavilion or at one of our global meetings. And so it keeps the dialogue going year-round online. Mark and Sean, can I ask if you would like to comment on either of those?
Sure. This is Sean. The LinkedIn tool I've used a couple of times. It's a great way to tap into the wealth of knowledge from your peers that participate in the IBC. And a lot of what I've learned is we're all running into the same kind of issues and problems, and it's a good way to send one out that says, hey, here's what one of my retailers asked me to do, and it doesn't smell like something I want to do, and you send it out, and the responses you get from that can help you determine, hey, other people are seeing this, or here's how I handle it. So it allows you to gather some data points and how to proceed thoughtfully with some expanded knowledge. And I've used it also as simple as to send out a LinkedIn message asking for hotel advice in a country that I've never been to.
Great, thank you. Mark, do you have anything to add to what Sean said?
No, I think he covered it well.
Great. Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the IBC Global Forum. This is the main meeting of the IBC membership. It's an annual meeting that will take place this June in Chicago, the 17th and 18th of June. It's an educational and networking event of the IBC group. There's the brochure that is online, and I'd like to talk a little bit more thoroughly about this member benefit. This year's IBC Global Forum will have several pieces to present to our attendees. We have an executive education session which will be presented by an industry researcher that's done a lot of work on rethinking the 4 Ps of marketing for today's global market. We will also have presentations by several global retailers and the distributor. The retailers and their countries are listed on our PowerPoint for you. We have a Housewares retail conglomerate out of Australia, the Housewares group. We have a retailer out of the Czech Republic called UTC, a Kuwaiti retailer, Safat Home, a Russian distributor called Chef, a Brazilian retailer called Etna, and a to-be-confirmed European retailer that will be speaking. And what our aim is with inviting these retailers and distributors to speak is not only a market overview for the markets from which they come, but it offers you as an attendee an ability to see whether or not you would be a fit for that retailer or distributor. And it allows you during networking sessions, during breaks, during lunches, to liaise with these buyers and have a potential sales opportunity, not only learning about their market, but learning whether or not your product would fit into their mix of products. So it's a sales trip in a way. It's a one-on-one sales trip that you might not otherwise have if you didn't come to the Global Forum. And it offers a wonderful way to not have to travel to the Czech Republic to understand that market and to meet someone there that you may not fit with, but they may have another suggestion of a retailer or distributor that fits with you. And then another highlight of the IBC Global Forum are the strategic problem networking sessions that go on during the meeting. We have several of these set aside so that an IBC board member is responsible for leading a group in talking about some of the issues that may get in the way of some of your exports, or may actually help you start your exports if you're new to export. And that's a session that we have a lot of favorable responses to year after year, because it gets you in front of other industry peers that might have more knowledge in one market than you, or might have more knowledge in exporting than you. And it's a great resource for our attendees, seasoned and unseasoned. So it's really a wonderful component to our meeting. And I've just summarized the IBC Global Forum. I'd like to ask Mark if you could comment on what you've experienced from having attended. And I know in the past you've also had several of your colleagues attend with you, and what you feel you've gotten out of that.
Absolutely. I think you did a great job of explaining the sessions themselves. Personally, and for our company, I know that we have established some of the best relationships that I have in the industry, both on the retailer side and on the supplier side, the vendor side. I believe some of my biggest or my best relationships and connections have come from attending the IBC Global Forum. I've been, I believe, 7 years now, and we typically bring to at least another or two others from our organization. And it's nice because the education sessions, you can get a learning benefit out of that you're not going to set aside the time to do while you're inside your office, but then put that on top of the relationships that you build with the retailers and then others within the industry. I think it's probably the most valuable benefit we have as a group.
Thank you, Mark. Sean, do you have any comments?
I would agree with Mark. I think one of the most important pieces that you come away with is the networking. And it's not just networking there, it's networking afterwards, because you're forming a relationship with your peers, which are other suppliers that are attending, as well as the retailers that are presenting. And you have phone numbers and emails that you can follow up if you have something that you think of, or you need to get in front of the buyer, and you can just reach out and really work the network, so to speak. And I think with that networking, I usually go with some of the issues that I'm facing right now, and I take those to the forum with me, and I try to talk to some of the guys that I know are participating in the areas where these occur, and I usually come away with solutions to the issues that I'm facing. And I really like the executive education, because I think that this is there's usually a thought-provoking topic, and it takes you out of your element and allows you to just sit and listen and absorb, and are you doing things correctly? How can you change? And there's usually a good golden nugget that comes out of that executive education that you can bring back and put to work in your own company. So I really look forward to that, and I even look during the year at the possibilities of getting executive education with an international focus. And it's really hard to find one that's married to our industry and international, that as we are conducting it. And when you do find them, they're $5,000 to $6,000. So, in summary, the networking that you get out of the Global Forum, I think, is invaluable, and the education is thought-provoking and usually very exciting. The people that present are usually very good. So those two, and then Lori, the retailers, the group that you have there is, that's a stellar group. You're covering 5 regions in 2 days, and again, that would cost you $10,000 to hit all those guys in a year if you can do it. So yeah, I think the Global Forum is a lot of bang for your buck.
I think Sean and Mark would agree with the fact that this is a great opportunity, particularly if you are new to or wish to expand your export business, this is a great opportunity to submerge yourself in not only the information that's presented, but the opportunity to speak to other seasoned professionals in this business who are happy to share with you. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for anyone who feels they either need to start or jumpstart their international business. This is just an excellent opportunity. It's right here in Chicago, and it's very close to O'Hare, and I think simple in and out, and I would encourage you to be there. I'd also like to ask if there are any other questions. Debbie, any other questions come in?
Not at this time.
I just want to throw one thing out there also, that 20 years ago I went to my first global forum, and I was new to the business, and there was the information that was given really helped me in the process, but also the networking, and there were seasoned veterans that really reached out and made themselves available for that, those first couple of years until you start to really figure out what you're doing.
Great. Thank you, Sean. I want to just share with you that there's some resources that we've discussed during this webinar. In order to join IBC and start taking advantage of the benefits that we've discussed, there's a link there on our website. The survey will feed off of that link. There's the link to the Global Forum, and then there's my information if you need to get in touch with me regarding anything we've discussed on this webinar, IBC related or IHA related. We can certainly put you in touch with the proper resources here at IHA. Thank you all for joining. I wanted to also thank Mark Atkinson and Sean Daly for your contributions to the webinar, and we hope that those that have participated have derived some understanding of what IBC is and plan to take advantage of some of our resources within the IBC. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.